I literally 23 years ago set out to try and discover what are the stories we had shut down. That's all. I was just thinking, we wrote the Kama Sutra. I had no idea what the Kama Sutra was about. Nobody ever knows what it's about till you go and study it. And I thought, okay, let me just go and see, kahin to kuch kahaniyan hongi, and I went out to look for these stories and stumbled upon this entire treasure of literature that has just, yeah, here I am today. And I'm so glad that I did, because you wouldn't believe how exquisitely beautiful and liberating, like you said, it is.
Yeah, I mean, I can just sense that, not having read it and just seen, you talking about it, the sense of liberation that one feels, right? And the sense of education as well. I think that somehow it's come out of India, but we are somehow never encouraged to read it. And I wonder why that is.
I really don't know. I mean, it's got this reputation for being a book on positions. There is a chapter on positions. It's a tiny little chapter, but it's like not even, I mean, if I have to take it in percentage, it's not even what 1% of the book, actually. So the book itself, and I want to tell you this because I think a lot of people don't realize, the book we think was written in about the 4th century. We believe that it was compiled, not written, compiled by a man called Vātsyāyana. Vātsyāyana in his own introduction says he hasn't written anything new. He says, I've taken stuff from books written 1,000 years before, and I've taken the bits that I like and copied and pasted them.
He was an aggregator.
Yes, he's the aggregator.
Okay.
Says the real estate person. I can see the shift in vocabulary.
I apologize.
No, it's great. People should understand that, everything kind of has an extension, right?
Yeah.
So what he does is, the book, the Kama Sutra itself, is written for young men or men of wealth.
Okay.
This is a time when women are not taught how to read or write.
Understood.
So it's not even written for the average man. It's written for men of wealth and leisure who are at court. It's written in 7 sections, and it's basically about how to live your best life socially. The first section is about how to build your house. So if you're a young man of money, how will you find a location? How will you build the house? How many rooms it should have? How many bedrooms it should have? How many beds in each bedroom? Because their belief was that you don't sleep on the same bed on which you have sex. So you had to have different beds, couches. How do you decorate the house? How many hours this young man should spend being massaged and bathed? How many hours he should spend talking to his minor birds and parrots? All this is in section 1.
Okay.
Section 2 is on pleasure, which is the section we'll come to later.
Yeah.
It's the only section that interests me. Section 3 is on how to find the perfect wife. And they have some very strange, also some very backward ideas, but then it's okay. This is written 2,000 years ago.
Can you mention some?
Yeah. So the strange ideas like, if a girl's name ends with R or L, you should not marry her.
I wonder why.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, still haven't worked this out. Interestingly, and this is something again that we'll touch upon, the Kama Sutra is a difficult book to translate because it's written in metaphor. It's not a straight out, it's a treatise. But I must explain that to you properly when we get to it.
Okay.
Anyway, it has some very backward notions about what kind of woman you're looking for in a wife. But like I said, books written today can be problematic. Ye to 2000 saal pehle ki baat hai. Anyway, section 4 is a really interesting section on how to marry this woman once you have found her.
Okay.
And in a time before text messages and so on, it says how you convince her to marry you. So who are the people that you put in place to be a go-between, to send your messages? And this is now thinking about, not that I never get to see this woman, I am just going to tell the family to get in touch. It's not. This is where the woman is now being convinced. Like, who are the people you're employing to carry messages, to tell her, ye to bahut acha aadmi hai, he's so cool.
The stage of courting, basically.
Totally. And this is even sort of the courting and pre-courting.
Okay.
So that's section 4. Section 5 is on how to seduce another man's wife.
Oh,
Because if the other man is very powerful, how do you get to his power? You seduce his wife and you get to him through that. So it's a politically motivated chapter.
got it.
Section 6 is on courtesans and sex work, because the Kama Sutra is written at the same time as the Arthashastra.
Okay.
Chanakya had made sex work legal. There was a ministry for it. There were laws around it. And so this particular section deals with how courtesans should behave, what are their laws, etc. Section 7, we think, was added later. It's on Jadoo Tona.
How fascinating.
Yeah.
Imagine it's got so much and we only think
Of positions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
The
unfortunate.
Jadoo Tona section is really daft. It's of no use to anybody. Like mix the eye of a peacock with the droppings of a pigeon, and that kind of nonsense. So,
Got
like really, it's no use to
Yeah.
anybody.
Take what you want from
Take
it.
what you want from
basically.
it. But basically, that is the Kama Sutra. Section 2, which is on pleasure, is divided into all sorts of interesting things on how you are supposed to communicate, how pleasure and foreplay is extremely important. So it talks about everything from kissing and the different types of kisses to different types of oral sex. And it's a treatise. So it's like an accountancy ledger. It basically does not give you emotion. It doesn't tell you how you're supposed to feel. It tells you what is the systems, literally, that it puts into place.
Got it.
And it tells you about the different ways of doing everything. So you're not just stuck in one thing. It tells you about the conversations you should have before you even start foreplay, to get your mind out of whatever office work you're thinking about. And it's a very, very modern section. Originally, the Kama Sutra, the first Kama Sutra that we know of, because there are thousands, it was rewritten and rewritten and rewritten over the centuries. The original one, we think, talks about 18 positions. We now have like several hundred. And I think that the variations came in because furniture changed. So, literally, if you have the sitting position, you start with a gadda, you get a bench, you get a chair, you get recliners, you get kitchen tops. I don't know. Positions keep changing. So that's where the positions come from. Interestingly, I also want to make a point of saying that the Kama Sutra does not talk about the act of sex.
Okay.
It doesn't talk about it talks about the positioning of the bodies. It does not talk about the act of sex. What I love about the Kama Sutra is that it is not so much about the act of sex. It's about the shift in your brain. It's the vocabulary. It's the nazakat. It's the idea of making it sound beautiful, but also something that excites you in the brain, which gets you thinking, oh, I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
That's what I love about the Kama Sutra.
Very interesting. And I think that's what kept you engaged in discovering more and more about it.
Absolutely.